जी का खालसा
Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh Ji. Waheguru Ji Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Fateh Ji. Ravinder Singh here in Columbus, welcoming you to another session of Coach Gurbani. We are continuing today to consider the Sodar Bani, and today Chetan Deep will take on the second passage, Asamela Pella Sunwadak Sabakoy. So, with that said, Chetan Deep, it's all yours.
Vaheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Vaheguru Ji Ki Fateh. I hope you can hear me clearly. So let's start by reading the passage first, and then we can go over the meanings or my understanding of what I understood from the Shabad. Asa Mahalla Pehla, Sun Vadda Akhai Sab Koe, Kewad Vadda Dita Hue, कीमत पाए न कहिया जाए, कहने वाले तेरे रहे समाए, वड्डे मेरे साहिबा, गहर गंभीरा, गुणी गहीरा, कोई न जाने तेरा कीता केवड़ चीरा रहाओ। सब सुरते मिल सुरत कमाई, सब कीमत मिल कीमत पाई, ज्ञानी ध्यानी गुर गुर हाई, कहन न जाई तेरी तिल वडियाई। सब सत सब तप सब चंगियाइयां, सिद्धा पुरखा किया वडियाइयां, तुद बिन सिद्धि किने न पाइया, करम मिले नाही ठाक रहाइया। आखण वाला क्या बेचारा, सिफती भरे तेरे भंडारा, जिस तू दे तिसे क्या चारा, नानक सच सवारण हारा। So when I read this Shabad over and over to understand what Guru Nanak is conveying in this Shabad, uh, in very few words, what like the main idea of this Shabad, as I understand, is like that all of us, all the humans, everyone, we are looking around and trying to figure out basically who or what is this God, what's this idea. We're since we are humans and we have this mental capacity and I would say a desperate need to intellectualize or figure out things, put labels on these things and understand things, right? So it's very natural that we'll try to figure out who God is, and that's a question, or rather, what is this reality that we are living in? So Guru Nanak is observing in this passage that everyone around us, and he has mentioned few classes in this Shabad, few categories of humans, and like who are trying to figure out, but they cannot get to the depths or they cannot understand who this guy is, and that's this Shabad that it's mostly about. So this Shabad is divided into four sub passages. If we go through the Shabad, we'll see a numbering scheme, 1, 2, 3, 4, and then apart from these four, there is a Rahau di Pankti in this Shabad. So since the central idea of a Shabad is contained in Rahau, so let's start with Rahau di Pankti and try to understand what Guru Nanak is conveying. ਵੱਡੇ ਮੇਰੇ ਸਾਹਿਬਾ ਗਹਿਰ ਗੰਭੀਰਾ ਗੁਣੀ ਗਹੀਰਾ ਕੋਇ ਨਾ ਜਾਣੈ ਤੇਰਾ ਕੀਤਾ ਕੇਵੜ ਚੀਰਾ. So the first thing that stood out for me in these lines were mere sahiba, and this seems to me like a very personal connection between Guru Nanak and Sahib. He calls his Sahib mere Sahib, right? You call someone mera when you're very up close and personal, and he's conveying that in a poetic fashion, like mere sahiba, right? So and it also feels like he's not stating a fact or something. It's like he's conveying his state of mind or his observation or the reality as he perceives it. So that's the first thing that stood out to me. It's a very personalized state of mind that Guru Nanak is sharing what he's feeling. And in these lines, what he's saying is nobody knows or can know your ultimate reality. So here the word chira stood out to me. Chira is like you divide something. and try to figure out what's inside, what's the ultimate reality of something. Like we have been dividing the molecules and atoms into electrons and protons and quarks to figure out where, how deep the rabbit hole goes. And he's saying like nobody knows or nobody can know the ultimate reality of, for a what a better word called God, right? Or the reality. And we can try to conceptualize, label, divide, put it in a box and say, oh, this is God. But he's saying, Vadde mere sahaba, you are so vadda that your reality cannot be known, your essence or your reality, it cannot be conceptualized, labeled, or divided. So that's basically the essence of this whole Shabad. That's a central idea. And taking this Rahau as a central theme, when we look at the entire Shabad, basically it's either an illustration of this idea or examples of this idea. So let's look at the first sub passage. Uh, One thing that I want to add here before moving to the sub passage one that starts with Sunvada Kisapko is, I was also thinking that how this Shabad relates to the previous Shabad. And since this Shabad also comes twice in Guru Granth Sahib, once at page 9 under the heading of Sodar, and once in Ragasa on page 348. So I was wondering what's the connection between the previous Shabad and this Shabad. And when I read the first Shabad, I found out that Guru Nanak was actually in a state of vismad or wondering about so dar tera keha, so kar keha. Like he's saying, like, kaisa hai tera kar, not as a question, but as a, uh, like in a sense of amazement. So, and since he's so up there, close, it's his own personal realization. And now when he's looking around, he's saying everybody is trying to figure out without having that experience themselves. They're just trying to conceptualize. So that's kind of the connection between last Shabad and this. Uh, and that's how I understand it. So let's look at the sub passage one. सुन वड्डा अख है सब कोय केवड़ वड्डा डीठा होए कीमत पाए न कहिया जाए कहने वाले तेरे रह समाए. So again, continuing the theme, he's saying like everybody, all the humans, everybody around us, they don't have that first hand experience, but they're trying to just say how big the God is. Like everybody is just saying, oh, he's indescribable or he's unfathomable and so big. It's like everybody is hearing from each other and they're saying it hearsay. Uh, so one thing that stood out for me in this first pankti was sab koe, and sab had onkad underneath, uh, and I was trying to figure out does what does it actually mean. And but when I looked at the second instance or second occurrence of this Shabad on page 348, there this word sab does not have onkar underneath, and the wordings are actually sun vada akhe sab koi. So I'm not very sure if the word sub here with the onkar has anything special or it's just a poetic rhythm. But the essence, what I understand is like everybody is seeing hearsay, and by looking around them on and wondering how big this god is. So the कीमत पाए ना कहा जाए. So again, this line, the way I read is it's like the word na is kind of a connector. So कीमत पाए ना कहा जाए. I mean, this is kind of a poetic style. It could be, to understand this poetic style better, this line could be read as na कीमत पाए ना कहा जाए. So the single usage of the word na as connecting between कीमत पाए and कहा जाए. So it's again a poetic style that Guru Nanak has expressed this in. So कीमत, the way I understand, is like a valuation or evaluation, that putting a price on something or figuring out the worth of something, like, oh, this thing is worth this much, or like basically wrapping your head around something and saying this is the price. Again, he's saying like that cannot be done with Nirankar, and hence no valuation. And you cannot really say like Kehna or Akhna what he's worth, right? And he's saying, कहने वाले तेरे रहे स्माए. However, those who have really said or experienced that, they have been one with him. Uh, the next passage is सब सुरते मिल सुरत कमाई सब कीमत मिल कीमत पाई ज्ञानी त्यानी गुर गुर हाई कहन न जाई तेरी तिल वड़ियाई. Now he is taking an example of Gyani Tyani, like intellectual class of people like us who try to debate or who try to intellectualize to the last anchored, and like trying collaborative in a collaborative fashion, trying to figure out who is this guy, how to, uh, what he's all about, like including the speculation that we do, and we have lengthy discourses. So, but Guru Nanak is saying that they don't know even like a seed, like a till. They don't know anything about this Nirankar. Uh, Looking at the next sub passage, sab sat sab tab sab chingiyaiyan siddha purkha kiya vadiyaiyan tud bin siddhi kine na paiya karam mile nahi thak rahaya. In this sub passage, he talks about another class of humans like siddhs. Like they try to understand you, they try to figure you out by either meditating or by doing physical acts or by being morally right, sanghyaya. But again, you cannot be attained without the true siddhi. And the true siddhi can only be had with grace, like karam. And if someone has karam on them, then there's no stopping them. Uh, and up on to the last sub passage, akhan wala kya vechara सिफती परे तेरे पंडारा जिस तुम दे तिसे क्या चारा नानक सच वरणहारा. So in the end, Guru Nanak is saying like whosoever, all the humans, classes, categories, those have tried to realize you without having that experience in them first, they are kind of helpless, right? Vichara, and uh, like they have no choice, or they are basically helpless. Vichara, and on the other hand, he's saying the one you bless, just to they, then he has no other choice but to say it, or to say it, or as he says, Nanak, such Varanhara, such is like himself, Nirankar, like that's the only true marker, or that's the only realization that when you have, you can say, you cannot understand, or you cannot again divide or anything, you cannot label it even, but you can know Nirankar up and close and have that experience of such that Guru Nanak is talking about. Virji, back to you.
Thank you, Chetandeep, for that very nice exposition. This is an interesting shabad, I think, from what you have explained to us. The, the bottom line is that this is not the subject of any measurement or being able to put a price on. After all, how do you evaluate something that has no shape, color? I think that is part of the message that I picked up certainly from you. And yet, Gurbani does pose similar questions all through, and it seems to suggest that that through Gurmati or Gurmukha you can actually Gurmate Kimat Paejiyo. So I would like to sort of open up the discussion to say what is that pavana that is being referred to here, kimat pavana, because here it's saying teri kimat na paye, you cannot you cannot be evaluated. Um, so that said, let me get the ball rolling here. Ekunkarji, welcome back. Happy New Year, and hope you will lend some of your thoughts to this discussion.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh. Happy New Year to you as well. And I mean, well, not sure that I have much to say. I thought Chitandeep Singh did a nice job talking about this. I always find it really interesting that after Japji, the Sodara gets repeated, and I'm sure you all talked about that last week.
We did.
But for me, for me, this comes to the idea of nod, and that that it's through the nod that the creator moves, and that gets explained in the Sodor in a certain level, and then Guru Nanak's kind of taking it more to a philosophical level in this part of in this particular shabad, because what he's saying is, look, we can all talk about all these beings, the sages, the siddhas, the gyanis, that everyone has something to say about you. And the problem we get into with human reality is that we start arguing with each other about our descriptions of the divine. I mean, this is that wonderful poem, if you all ever read it, of course, the blind man and the elephant, where everyone's trying to describe something that no one's seen. And this has a little bit of that feel to me, that he starts by saying, we all want to say you're great, but no, none of us know how great you are. And the only ones who really can describe you are not separate from you to begin with, right? So whoever has the true description isn't in form anyway. And this is an aspect of Nod that we need to understand, that when we speak, we define things, and then we get lost in our definition. We get locked in it. We get blocked by it. And what Guru Nanak, I think, does over and over again so brilliantly in his poetry is he acknowledges the definition and then says, we're all limited because there's no way for us to describe you completely. And that opens up the possibility of an endless, infinite process with a creative consciousness that can always reveal in new ways and do new things. And the only thing I can say is that what the understanding you give me is the only thing I can talk about. I can never say I know more than someone else or better than someone else. I can only say, well, you've given me this understanding, but that's it. That's all you've given me to see. And I'm not in a position to judge or argue with another human being. And we have to be conscious of how we use our word and our language, because of the fights we get into with each other when we forget these things. So those are some of my thoughts on this passage.
Thank you, Kunkarji. I do want to say that, essentially what you're saying is that the expression of how great he is cannot be confined to speech or words. And I think I appreciate that insight. Do you want to go next?
Waheguru Ji Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Fateh Ji.
Fateh Ji.
Chetandeep Ji, thank you very much for an excellent presentation and placing us to think a little more deeply than we conventionally think, at least I. So I appreciate that. Let me first just pose some questions on what Chetandeep Ji you said. You started out with the Rahautuk, and in that you started that your reality cannot be, you use the word your reality. When we start using your reality, that means we are talking two different entities. One is you and one is entity. One is reality. I think we need to be very clear that either we are talking about you, whosoever you is, whether that's expressed as a reality or reality itself is you. So I think that's the one point I just want to observe when you mentioned about the how thing. And the second thing, before I put my own thoughts, let me just put these thoughts out. I'm not sure, and I just need some clarification that this particular Shabad has appeared at two different places in Guru Granth Sahib. One on page 8 and one, I think you said page 3, some number like that. So I'm not clear because these placements are done by Guru Arjan Sahib Ji, not by Guru Nanak Dev Ji. Guru Nanak Dev Ji recited these shabads, but placement was done for different reason, different way of doing things. So does that in your thinking play out that the shabads have exactly the same meaning, where the sub word comes with onkod or not? So I'm not sure. I'm just throwing that one out. And then the third thing is you use the word karm mile. I would like you to expand the word karm. What do you understand by that? And I would like to hear that one. But before I go and leave it there, what uh, uh, Ekinkarji said was, and I think about the word nad, and I think Ravinder Veerji very clearly, and I totally agree what he said, is that these languages and the words are social constructs. This is the way how we communicate. And we are talking about this unknown reality. There's no language there, nothing. It is total experience. And that gives me some sort of solace in the sense that, as Rindaveji said in the beginning, on one hand, Guru Sahib says it cannot be assessed, his Kimat cannot be found, but through Gurmat, we can find it. And I think the Gurmat takes us to a certain threshold. At that threshold, we start to experience his presence. How we experience it, again, we cannot describe because these social constructs are not potent enough to capture that experience even. So I just leave it here on the word your reality, what you pointed out, and the word karam, if you can expand on that. And otherwise, I really enjoyed your presentation.
Anji, thank you, Ranavirji. And Chetanji, before I give it to you, there is a couple of lines that I want to read out based on what Ekukarji and Ranavirji just said. It said, Sacho dur na janiye, antar hai soi. So it's not far, it's inside of you. Jeh dekha teh rav rahe. So wherever I look, and then it goes on to say, Jeh dekha teh rav rahe, kin कीमत होई आप करे आप पे हरे वेखे वडियाई. Then it goes on to say गुरमुखे होए निहालिया इयों कीमत पाई. So this is how you actually, I mean, if you want to talk in terms of figuring out, or गुरमुखे होए निहालिया इयों कीमत पाई, but it comes back to the same thing, that the Gurmukh who is the sort of through the guru, the state that you get into surpasses language. And I think that's really the essence. So Chetan, on to you.
Uh, Hanji Virji, I'll have to look into the shabads that you quoted to actually you raised this before to Gurmukh Kimat Paijio. So I'll have to look into details into the shabad to comment anything about that. However, what Rana Virji said, I think it's a finer nuance that really shows that you were listening to each and every word that I was saying. So, I mean, I think our understanding regarding your reality is on the same page. I don't think I mean two different things. Just again, as we are talking about it today, it's a measure of speech, or rather, the limitations of speech that we tend to use the words together and quickly. Regarding the second thing that you asked is the karam. I think karam, as I understand here, is like Gur Prasad, Kripa, or another. I mean, all of them could mean different depending on the context. But what I understand here is Guruji is saying karam mile, like it can be only had with grace, as he says on multiple other places.
Thank you. Viji, do you have a follow up for Chetan?
Yes, I think it puts us back to the same question we were talking last time too. I think Kulwan Panji asked the same question. So there is grace. Without grace, things cannot be achieved or cannot be bestowed, or we cannot avail of this grand opportunity. Is this, are you underscoring that the grace is something unknown to us? It has to come, and how to get that grace then? Is it I think Ravinder Veji was saying that it cannot be a random process. people are ignored and other are not ignored. So maybe if you want to reflect on that, or you can put
I
it
think
aside.
maybe quickly I can touch on that, just thinking out loud some thoughts. Uh, I mean, the, I mean, in the if you see the whole process, what's happening is, uh, what would be a best example? Maybe an example of a wave and an ocean, right? I mean, we're like a wave on the surface of an ocean. We don't have any separate reality, but for some reason, illusion, we think of ourselves as separate from the ocean. And once the wave is crashing and going back to the ocean, again, I'm not saying there are two different entities. It's all the one. It's an illusion. But the point being, unless so, unless the wave loses its own, it cannot get back to the ocean. So, in that sense, it has to be ocean's karam or nazar, because there is no wave, there is no me. So, once there is no me, it has to be the karam. I mean, it is, and that's all there is. I would say, uh, because there is no self. There is no identity of me as a separate identity. Then if it is not, then it is all your karam, or it is rather all the karam. I don't know if I'm making sense, but that's what I would like to say.
Thank you. Another one that I want to read out, because I did think about this a little bit. There is a shabad in uh, Maj Mahalla Panjama, and it seems to address this question. It starts out by asking, Kaun su mukta, kaun su jukta, kaun su gyani, kaun su bhakta. And then it asks this question, Kaun su girhi, kaun udasi. And here it is, Kaun su kimat paye jiyo. I understand this to mean a question, Kaun su kimat paye jiyo. And it's a long shabad, but it goes on to say, Gurmukh gyani, Gurmukhe bhakta, tan girhi udasi, Gurmukh kimat paye jiyo. So I think it is a state of consciousness. I think that's what we are trying to get at, that it is not really a linguistic thing. It is not something that
Uh,
we generally talk about. I mean, we intellectualize, as you said. So,
maybe,
anyways, I just wanted
maybe
to throw
can I
that out there.
can I point out something, or can I quickly respond to that?
Sure.
The thing is, like, there are so many shabads. If you search for the word kimat, right, every line would something be like this: "Pi teri kimat na pave, okay, vada khanao," or something like "Kimat kene na paiya, kehen na vadda hoye." Right? I mean, and then there are some panktis like as you're suggesting, Tangirhi Udasi, Gurmukh Kimat Paiji. So I think we'll need to read the entire Shabad to understand what the context is. So
I'm glad you picked on that, because the reason I read this out was because it seemingly seems to say, on the one hand, that you cannot really put a kimat on this reality, and yet in other places it seems to suggest, now it could mean that my understanding of the Shabad is not correct, but I'm glad you picked on it, because I that is where I was trying to go. That there are seemingly different messages, at least that I picked up on.
is it also possible? I'm just speculating now. Is it also possible that when in the Shabad he says Gurmukh Kimat Paye Jio, because on one hand he says ki nobody can know or understand Nirankar, right? And but again he on the other hand he says Gurmukh Kimat Paye Jio. So would that mean that the Gurmukh, or the one who has realized the value of that experience, not necessarily of Nirankar?
Could be. I don't know. In fact, I'd like to hear from the others. So, Kulwant Kaur Panji, do you want to go next? And you've heard the conversation, and you've heard my
Yeah.
attempt here to try and bring a seemingly different view.
Riji, I don't have actually any different view. I agree
Okay.
with everyone. I just also want to say the same thing again, that as we know that he is infinite, he's agam, he's a gocher. We can't define that reality because our knowledge, our capacity is very limited. But still, when I hear the word in Gurbani, like मेरे साहिबा तू मेरा मात पिता और अंतर है सोई, like you were telling, quoting the lines. When we hear through the framework of Gurbani, then we get tempted or curious, to know about him. What is that reality? What is that power that looking at, looking over everything? And that's all. I think I'm enjoying
Okay.
everything
All
and
right.
trying.
Before I go to you, Gurjeet Singh Virji, I also want to add another thought that crossed my mind, and that was that uh, just experience would tell us that this reality is really not something that is definable, right? I mean, even if Guru Nanak hadn't said this, just through experience and through listening and just being around, at some point you'd have to conclude that, well, everyone's trying to describe something, but really not getting anywhere with it. So why would Guru Nanak, spend so much time trying to tell us that, hey, you can't really describe him? So just want to throw that out there. Hanji Virji.
ਹਾਂਜੀ ਵੀਰ ਜੀ, ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕਾ ਖਾਲਸਾ ਵਾਹਿਗੁਰੂ ਜੀ ਕੀ ਫਤਿਹ. I might be a bit breaking up sometimes. I'm outside. So, anyway, Chetandeep has picked up a nice few observations, and he has also left few good observations. Sabh koi is you could yourself check that is a sort of Pathantar which I talk. There are over about 3,000 such Pathantars where Sihari, Onkar, etc. has gone missing. So both Shabads should have a sab with an Onkar, because if you start reading Japaji, Hukame andar sab ko, that also has an Onkar. They all should have Onkar. So missing is, we need to put it there. Secondly, Vadde Mere Sahiba is not properly described because Nanak ji is Puran Brahm himself. He is addressing someone as a Vadde Mere Sahiba. But one thing is very clear, he is not saying Sabte Vadde Mere Sahiba. Sabte Vadda will still be Satgur, but Vadda Mera Sahib is the one who is looking after. I think he's talking about Par Brahm there, because he himself is a Puran Brahm. The best thing which we have to pick out of this Sabbath is the second Pankti, which has been written wrong in every Gutka except the Singh brothers Gutka. It's real, the way we should read it is Sab Surti Mil Surt Kamai Sab Ki. The word Kimat is not together there because Sab is with a Mukta there. Sab Ki Mat Mil Kimat Pai is okay. That everyone got together, still they are not able to find the value, कीमत value hindi, because he is Amul. Especially if someone is sitting in Pav Sagar and guessing like we are to guessing. Some noise.
Yeah, there's some noise in the background.
Good. So the first question which he has raised, that even it's a good question for us, Sun vadda akhai sab koi. Even we have the Granth written by Pura Sadguru. We are still guessing about him. It shouldn't be a case with us. We should be much more clear than a normal person, because the people who has written Gurbani for us, they were merged with him. They were one with him, and only he has told them, Jisnu tu janai, soi jan janai. This is the kirpa. He has blessed these people, these Bhagats, so that they can speak on his behalf, because he has been referred as Vadde Mere Sahiba Gahir Gambira. Gambir is a person who never talks. Guni Gahira, and the only thing I see within him, Guru Nanak says, is full of virtues. But still he gives us that wisdom so that we can speak on his. So Sunvada Akhai Sab Koi has been rejected. I normally I quote this, that we say Vaheguru is Naam. This is not accepted in Gurbani. It has been accepted somewhere else. So we have been propagating this idea for a long time, but we need to recheck ourselves again. That was that said anywhere in Gurbani, or this is we are just
Can you
listening to from someone else.
I'm sorry, can you repeat this, please? I somehow lost connection.
Sun vadda akhai sabh koe, we have been asked not to do it. We have to search for ourselves. What is the truth within the Gurbani? We are also listening from here and there, this study, that katha, and sometimes things are contradicting. That is what we need to clear ourselves after reading and comprehending ourselves. So if we are also saying that, that Sant Gyani said, oh, four heads were cut and then they were joined, even crossed over, we have to check from Gurbani the fact could just be verified, and in there are a lot of other historical facts which we have accepted, but we need to put them to the test with Gurbani. So just by listening to someone is not we have to do the khoj ourselves. Was that a fact really coming out of Gurbani, or was that someone told it and he just didn't enough research? So my main thing is the chira, K word chira. Chira is Pavsagar. It's a piece. When we cheer something, when we cut something, it becomes a little piece. Pavsagar is a little piece of Sukh Sagar. And no one knows how big is Pavsagar even. What to know about Sukh Sagar. So it's not our purpose to know how big it is, but our purpose is to just go and merge. Then also Guru Nanak Dev Ji refers that Akhan wala kya vichara. See, he is referring himself as a vichara. We normally refer this word to a person who is helpless. And he's saying that I'm helpless. In front of whom? In front of Sachkhand. He's a das. So all these words need to come out of Gurbani if we are trying to comprehend. Sifti pare tere pandara jistun de. He is giving to someone. We can't take it ourselves. That is what the Bakshish is. I think Rana Jiva last week we were discussing this. We can only cup our hands when he's going to put the prasad at his will. So and it's quite amazing that the first Gurbani appeared to Pagats. It was told before that a person born in a Shudra class could never have a Brahmgyan. So it says no, they never knew his ways. Sunvadda Akhai Sabh Koe was different. But what the acceptance in the real world came is that the first three Pagats, Kabir ji and Ravidas ji and Namdev ji, came from so-called, we don't accept it. So that's his wish, where he will put the Gyan. He can give it to anyone, but that person has to basically cup his hands. And basically, that was it. And I just want to put again the stress that we must read it sab ki mat mil कीमत पाई. So that's my intake. वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा, वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह.
Hanji, thank you, Ji. Hanji Chetandeep, do you wish to react, respond?
Uh, Mainly to just one thing, Virji. I was listening to Gurjeet Virji, and he said we should know better because we have Guru Granth, and he said basically sab sun vadda ke sabko, like listening to others won't give you that experience. You have to do a khoj yourself, and what I understand, what he was alluding to is we have to khoj the Granth because we have Granth with us, and we have to read it and understand. But I also want to add something here that even listening to Gurbani whole day will be similar to Sun Bada Aakhe Sab Koi. We can sit in the Khand part or Sahaj part, listen to the whole Guru Granth Sahib being recited, and come out and say, oh, God, Nirankar is very big. Unless we do a khoj inside ourselves, it is not going to lead anywhere.
Hanji. I agreed with both you, and I think that I feel very strongly about the fact that this is really something that you as an individual have to plunge into the depths of your own soul, and it's not easy. It's frightening, and you just have to, at the end of the day, stop listening to what others are saying, but actually go into yourself and figure it out. I'm absolutely of that conviction. Hanji Ekonkarji,
Hanji.
any additional thoughts as
I've
we
just been
wind up?
I've been enjoying listening to the conversation tonight.
Okay.
Again, I'm just for what it's worth. Um, I do think that Guru Nanak's also trying to teach us about interfaith dialogue in this
Well, yeah.
verse. That if we can all agree that there is no final description, then we can be a lot more relaxed about how everybody talks.
Yeah.
And I've been thinking, with the 550th birth anniversary of Guru Nanak being this year, I don't. I'm kind of not liking the idea anymore of saying, well, there's Sikh gurus and Hindu saints and Muslim mystics in the Guru Granth Sahib. It's like, no, actually, there's just Gurbani and there's just one light and one humanity. And just, I think even the fact that we still think in those terms is shows that we're maybe missing the boat a little. So that's all I have to add tonight.
Thank you. And while you were talking, a thought occurred to me, which I will share. And this is the beauty of reflecting within a Sangat, is that I constantly have thoughts that are contradictory and seemingly opposed. But, as I was sitting here insisting that it is a solo ride, the thought occurred to me that no, not really. It isn't just solo. Uh, Sangat is the sort of collaborative tool that we've been given to understand and to gain in knowledge. So I would suggest that it really isn't an either or proposition. It is actually, the work is really your own. It's like a mountain climber who's climbing solo but is anchored inside of Sangat. That might be a better analogy. Anji Ranaveji.
Uh, Hanji, I think I agree with you that that's a collaborative exercise too, as well as individual. Both go simultaneously.
Anji.
You can be partially individual and then partially as we are sitting together. Uh, Coming back to the point, I think Chetan Virji just made, and in response to Gurjeet Virji, so vada akhai sabh koi, that it's not only matter of sunnah to listening to others, even Gurbani listening is, he was just pointing out that it has the same effect of to listen to somebody else. The question which comes to my mind as you were saying, that thought comes as you're listening to people and you interject, that's very good. Uh, the whole process is that we have to change our thinking. That's the internalization process. We have to change. We cannot change unless we start thinking about that. But thinking is not only by doing the research, as I think the point was being made. Listening can has a potent effect on what they call neuroplasticity. We are talking all the time. And I'm reading about that a lot. That it's not that you have to sit down. First, you have to develop the thinking. And thinking, change in thinking comes not only by reading, by listening. And that is whole process of neuroplasticity has been, and it has been used for CBT, for all lot of mental health issues. So if you want to change your thinking, that is a very good tool, listening to Gurbani. You don't have to sit down and start doing research, as we tend to say that, okay, research karo, but listening can bring about the thoughts. Yes, listening with of course, understanding. And that will bring about change in your thinking. And that thinking will inspire you to go deeper into this one. And that's my 2 cents on that, the comment you were
Hanji.
making.
Anji, I would suggest, you make good point about listening. We can always go back to the Sune and Mane Podiya, right? That is listening is the sort of inner technology that Guru Nanak has given us, at least to me, it seems like. But the interesting thing is that he's not talking about listening to a particular subject or dwelling on a particular subject. I think what he's saying, and when you speak about listening, I think it might be more appropriate to say that we have to develop the capacity to listen, because that is a capacity that we often don't have. It's not about thinking about some subject. We just, as an instrument, have to become good listeners to begin with. I mean, how often do we listen to others? Hardly ever, because we are all ready with an answer. So the capacity to be a listener, I think, is extremely important, as you said. So it's not, I think, listening to a specific thing, but just becoming listening itself within your person. Haji Kulwant Kaur Paji, last thoughts.
Steve, not really.
ठीक है जी. Haji Gurjeet Singh Veer ji, we are wrapping up. Any additional thoughts?
No, it's pretty good observation by Kanka Kaur that, yeah, we have been pushing too much that he comes from Hindu background, he comes from there. In the end, it's all should be all about Gurbani because the person who is putting the bakshish is Parmeshwar into the bhagats and they are speaking. We call them bhagats, we don't address them by any other. And second is, I'm a bit worried about the interfaith dialogue when she says, certainly has got an edge on a lot of mutts. They have advised them. Whether they will take that advice seriously or not, it becomes, how you, you put the advice. Like, antar dev na jane and pramka moha pave bhand, na pathar bole, na kish de, fokat karam nischal hai, save. So this is certainly against one sect of people who worship stones and has been quite outrightly criticized. So these things will have to be addressed when we go into faith. So yeah, we go a lot of interfaith too, but we keep in mind that at this stage we just keep within what is the truth. So yeah, that was my observation. जी वाहिगुरु जी का खालसा
ठीक है जी.
वाहिगुरु जी की फतेह.
Haji.
Uh, one response to what you said actually, and the second one to what Rana Virji actually triggered. So the first thing, you made a comment, and since this is that evening where when someone says something, you're having a thought. So it's my moment. Uh, you said develop the capacity to listen to others, right? I would like to modify that to develop the capacity to listen to our own minds and bodies.
Actually, that's what I'm in the end implying. Just being a list, just to listen, that capacity that we don't have, because that's where you will eventually land up, is trying to listen to yourself.
Right, and sure, I'm glad we're on the same page.
Yeah.
And the second thing that Rana Virji was saying, like listening and about neuroplasticity, right? So again, yes, the word here is sun badda ke sab koi, but if we read this as what Guru Nanak is pointing out or pointing to, that having a second-hand understanding, second-hand mental models will not help unless you have first-hand experience or realization. I mean, if we translate that Sun Vadda to this one, I think that makes more sense to me.
Sure. That makes sense. Anything else?
Which that's all from me.
I think some thought came to me when you said something in the beginning. How do you start? I just lost my train of thought. Can you repeat what you said in the beginning?
Me?
No, Chetan Vij, yeah. You were saying right now, something came to my mind.
Uh,
I,
which
I
all I
missed it.
was saying, like you were saying about listening and neuroplasticity, and right. I mean, listening to Gurbani. What I was trying to say, if we translate Sun Badda Akhai Sab Koi to what Guru Nanak is pointing out to second-hand understanding or second-hand mental models, or for example, our Sikh Guru said that oh, Nirankar is within.
Got it. Yes, got it. Yeah.
What I was
No,
saying is
yeah.
what
What thought came back? I think when you said that we have to listen to our own mind. Okay. Here is one thing where I pose back this question. It is your mind who's listening to mind. Okay. When you say we should listen to our mind, and then I ask you, the question is, it is your mind who's listening to mind. Because we are not clear when say we should be listening to mind, and I have raised that issue many times. It is your mind. Okay. I is basically, I'm coming to the conclusion, is your mind. Okay. Mind is listening to mind is very contradictory statement then, or incomplete statement.
ठीक है जी. We
Anyways,
can we can we can dwell on this for a little while.
Can I add one thing? Ji?
हाँ जी, वीर जी.
Okay. Like Sunwadaka Sabko is, see, Guru Angad listened to Nanak. Then further, he did the same process what Nanak did, and then he came out with his 63 shaloks. Then I think Guru Amar Das also listened to Guru Angad, and then he came out with Bani in 16 rags. That they did listen, but then they ultimately went into that stage to come out at the same level. So, सुन वड्डा के सब कोई केवड़ वड्डा डीठा होए. They were able to explain at the same level as Nanak was. That's why they say Nanak tu lehna tu hai, Guramar tu bichar. It's even that said for fourth Padsha. I think that's also one of the aspect that even after listening, then you take it deep into you and then you visualize that within you and then you come out with some slightly different explanation as well. So that only happens in the Ved Mat. It doesn't happen anywhere else because there is no one after Muhammad, there is no one after Jesus, but there are certainly Bhagats and Gurs. There were 14 after him and there were 9 after Guru Nanak. So this is, I think, very special about Gurmat. That's one of the aspects. ठीक है जी. Vai Khalsa, Vai Fateh.
Vaiji Khalsa, Vaiji Fateh ji.
Vajra.
All right. Ketandeep, you got anything else?
No, Virji. Thank you for
All
indulging.
right. ठीक है जी. With that said, Vaiguru Ji Khalsa, Vaiguru Ji Fateh to everyone, and we shall convene again next week.
Waheguru Ji Ka Khalsa, Waheguru Ji Ki Fateh.